So, when you lay out these types of plans, the answer is always the same. We're broke. We can't afford it. Nice idea, but we can't do it, right? And we're always broke, but we are particularly broke because we bailed out the banks, bailed them out on the familiar model of privatized profits and socialized losses. And because this was done on such a spectacular scale, there is simply no way to do the same thing for fossil fuel and big agribusiness companies that are at the heart of the climate crisis. We cannot let them pocket their huge profits while taking on the burden of cleaning up their messes, which is exactly what we're being asked to do. So the response to this crisis, unlike the last one, the economic one, must be guided by justice, and that means polluter pays. So there's all kinds of methods that we can get the polluter to pay, and by polluter I don't just mean the fossil fuel companies, I mean all of us super consumers out there that are using up more atmospheric space than we should be. And so this ranges from everything from increasing royalties at the point of extraction to luxury taxes to taxing financial transaction, up into and including nationalizing these companies if they don't cooperate. What we cannot do is accept climate policies that pass the bill on to working and unemployed people who are already struggling to pay their heating bills and to pay for transportation. I actually think that this is, for me, one of the reasons why I am such a supporter of the fossil fuel divestment movement, and I've been really excited to be part of it from the beginning as a board member of 350, and I was here in Boston with Bill on the Do the Math tour. But I have this secret agenda around divestment, which has to do with setting up the moral argument for the kinds of regulations that we actually need. And let me explain this a little bit. Now, we just heard from the very inspiring divestment movement at Harvard. There have been a slew of recent victories. While I was in the UK, they got some fantastic news, which is that Glasgow University voted to become the first university in Europe to divest from fossil fuels. And then we had the rather stunning news right on the eve of the UN Climate Summit when the Rockefeller family, names synonymous with oil, announced that part of their family was going to divest its family fortune from fossil fuels, and in particular their foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation. So the connection with the polluter pays is that every time a new institution decides to divest, indeed every time that the divestment argument is publicly made, anytime anybody says these are immoral profits, it reinforces the idea that fossil fuel profits are illegitimate. As Bill says, these are rogue industries. And it is this illegitimacy that is key to establishing the polluter pays principle that eventually forced the tobacco companies to help foot the bill for helping people to quit smoking. So the Rockefeller is actually a really important example, beyond just that it's sort of like, hi, Harvard, if the Rockefellers can divest, I think you can. But beyond that, when Valerie Rockefeller Wayne, who was one of the family members who was making the argument publicly, when she explained why her family had taken this historic decision, what she said was, this is a quote, "Because our wealth was made in oil, we are under greater moral obligation to use that wealth to stop climate change." Those are her words. And that, in a nutshell, is the rationale behind polluter pays. It used to be a guiding principle of environmental law. It was the guiding principle of the Superfund Act in 1980 that systematically taxed toxic industries to pay for remediation and so on. And it has been eroded steadily ever since. But it holds that when commercial activity creates hefty public health and environmental damage, the polluter must shoulder a significant share of the costs of repair. But this can't stop with individuals and foundations, nor can it be enforced voluntarily. So As I explained in the book, fossil fuel-based companies have been pledging for almost 2 decades now to use their profits to transition us away from dirty energy. British Petroleum rebranded itself Beyond Petroleum, if you'll recall, changed their logo to a sunburst, and only to back off renewables and double down on the dirtiest fossil fuels, including oil from the Alberta tar sands. They went back to their core competency, I believe was the phrase. Most of the oil majors spend less than 1% of their budgets on renewables, so don't be fooled by all those windmills in Chevron ads. We really do need to get those profits to pay for this transition. And clearly, they are not going to do it. The polluters are not going to do this unless they're forced to by law. And so back to the Rockefellers, it's great that their foundation is divesting, but Standard Oil, which was founded by John D. Rockefeller, was broken up and it evolved into ExxonMobil. And ExxonMobil earned $45 billion in profits in 2008 and 2012, which still remains a world record for any company in the history of money. And other Standard Oil spin-offs are Chevron and Amoco, which later merged with BP. So you've really got all the big guys in there. And the astronomical profits that these companies and their cohorts continue to earn from digging up and burning fossil fuels simply cannot continue to hemorrhage into private coffers. So that's where I think the divestment movement campaign really comes in, because it is delegitimizing these profits. And if we accept that those profits are morally illegitimate, they should also be seen as odious. Something not just to publicly disassociate yourself from if you happen to be Harvard, but something to which the public itself can make a claim in order to clean up the mess these companies have left behind and continue to create every day.